Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural Calgary Prostate Cancer Center's live stream event, The Local Dive. My name is Bill Brooks, and I'm pleased to be co-hosting and moderating for today's exciting and powerful event with Virgin 98.5 Morning Star host Fuzzy. Hey, Fuzzy.
Bill, you are so kind. Thank you
It's
for
true.
having me here. Great to be looking forward to actually being joined by an amazing group of guests today and diving into a topic that we can all relate to, even though we don't always talk about it, and that's overcoming adversity and hardship. And if there's ever been a year to overcome adversity and hardship, I think 2020 is it. We can all agree on that, right?
Oh, not true. Oh, no kidding, no kidding.
So we're broadcasting the live stream event from the Calgary Prostate Center, the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center at the Rocky View General Hospital here in Calgary, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, and of course the city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Fuzzy. Today's live stream event would not be possible were it not for our major sponsors, Agate Labs, Nutrient, and Post Media. So a big shout out and a thank you for your support.
Now, Bill, many people recognize your name from the column in the Calgary Herald that you've done for years, but not everyone knows that you're also on the board of directors for the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center. How exactly did you become first involved with the center?
Well, I've been involved, you're quite right, for more than 20 years. I think it was 23 years ago, to be precise, when my good friend Mark Wilson of Hotel Arts fame approached me to co-host a winemakers dinner, and he said, "Brooksy, pick the charity of your own choosing." And it was obvious, it was a no-brainer to pick prostate cancer because my uncle had just died of the disease tragically in his late 40s. So we did our little winemakers dinner, and we raised $7,500, and we thought we were heroes. And 19 years later, we were able to raise almost $8.8 million for the center. But even more importantly, are the people at the center, from the volunteers to the staff to the patients. They're just really wonderful people. So it really is a blessing to be able to be involved with the center. I feel truly fortunate.
And what is it that keeps you motivated to keep supporting the organization?
Well, there's no other center like it in the world. Like, we really are unique, and in fact, we have become a model for many other centers that will emulate what we're doing. When a man in Calgary is diagnosed with prostate cancer, the center, we're here to guide and support both the individual and their families through the entire process. And the center provides a one-stop approach and provides direct access to all of the services they need throughout their journey. And also PCCs, clinics provide men with rapid access to consultation, diagnosis, and information on treatment options. And all of this, and this is really important for our viewers to be aware of, that all of this is funded through the generous support of donors. We do not receive a nickel from the government, so we are able to keep our doors open and offer these invaluable service through the generosity of donors and third-party events and people like you watching this live stream who are going to help us today and donate.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're here this afternoon. Today's event marks the official kickoff of the center's annual Keep It in Calgary campaign. And the keywords there are Keep It in Calgary. So,
Yep.
Bill, what makes this campaign different than other men's health fundraisers?
Well, it's truly unique in that it's the only fundraiser that guarantees every dollar you donate goes towards helping local men in Calgary and Southern Alberta. And more than ever these days, it's important to support local, and that means supporting local businesses and local charities.
So making a local difference is at the core of the PCC, and that's why we're here today. You can join in the conversation on social. Make sure you're using the hashtag #LiveLocalGiveLocal. Again, that hashtag is #LiveLocalGiveLocal. And then you can also take action, make a donation now at keepitincalgary.ca. The website again is keepitincalgary.ca, because every dollar that you give supports men and their families here in Calgary.
That is fabulous, and I couldn't agree more. So, without further ado, we've got an amazing lineup of speakers today, and they will inspire you, maybe make your life just feel a little bit brighter. You might have a little more spring in your step, and they will share with us how they have managed to survive adversity, in some cases even thrive adversity. And the local dive kicks off with the Keep It in Calgary campaign. The lineup of people will, as I say, you're going to be quite impressed with who we have. And the local dive is interactive, so please share your questions for the speakers on social media and tag it hashtag Live Local Give Local. So that's hashtag Live Local Give Local. We'd also love to hear about how you've overcome adversity and how you choose to deal with hardship. You know, sharing your stories actually will help people overcome their hardships. So first up, helping us kick it off is Natalie Meisner. And Natalie is Calgary's Poet Laureate, which is pretty impressive. She's also a playwright, award-winning author, and professor at Mount Royal University in the Department of English. Natalie, thank you so much for finding time in your busy schedule to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. I knew immediately when I was asked to contribute something to this event, I knew immediately the piece that I wanted to read for you all. It's a poem that is about overcoming adversity, and it's about strength, different kinds of strength, and it's called What I Mean When I Say Heart. And so I'm very pleased to share that with you and to lend my voice as a poet to this very important cause. As a daughter, as a mom of 2 sons, as a niece, as a friend, as a best friend, this is a cause that's really, really near and dear to my heart. And I urge you all to support this cause and help in the search for a cure. So this piece is about, as I mentioned, thriving with adversity, not just coping, but learning to find strength. And I think poetry and the power of literature and sharing your stories is one of the ways that we can find to dip into that deep inner well of strength that we all have as people, and to find the strength when we need it. And so this brief poem that I'm going to share with you is called What I Mean When I Say Heart. What I mean when I say heart is something like strength. It's something like resilience. It's something like the steady power of a drenching summer rain. What I mean when I say heart is what you do when no one's watching, what you do when the chips are down. It's the course that you chart. What I mean when I say heart isn't the reliable fist-shaped organ hammering away in our chests in a steady rhythm, ba-dum-bump, ba-dum-bump, all day, every day, doing its job, keeping us alive, although that's important too. What I mean when I say heart is something like guts, what it takes to face down a nightmare in the wee hours alone. But that isn't the whole of it, no. What I mean when I say heart is something like true grit, something like what it takes to get up when you're knocked down again and again, but also to change a diaper, to comfort a crying child. What I mean when I say heart is not either toughing it out. It's not stiff upper lip. It's not staying silent in the face of pain, no. What I mean when I say heart is throwing open the doors and letting us in, each and every one of us who loves you and whose fate is tied to your own. That's what I mean when I say heart. Thanks very much.
Wow.
That's awesome, Natalie. That's fantastic. Now, you have a book of poems called Batty One Shoe that is a collection of odes to renegade women, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because renegade women, they are constantly facing that tough time, like so many of us are right now.
Yes. Yeah, and finding that kind of power when you're knocked down to get up again. And that's something I explore a lot in that book. And something I'm also really interested in are the different kinds of strength. Like, one of the things I wanted to get at here is that I think often we're urged to find our power or find our strength by kind of sucking it up or having that stiff upper lip. But I wanted to also urge that there's sort of strength and power in vulnerability and in throwing those doors open and kind of letting folks in and taking help when we need it. I think there's a lot of strength and a lot of power in that, you know, for both men and women.
Natalie, you mentioned finding your voice and finding your strength. There's a lot of people that find creative writing very therapeutic. How would you suggest that someone use writing to get them through a difficult time?
I think that writing something or being creative, whether it is, working on a poem or whether it is painting a picture, I think it's one of those unqualified human goods. Like it's something that we can do for ourselves, similar to communing with nature, that is almost always good for us because it's connecting with ourselves. It is also connecting with community, and it's also giving us perspective. Like if we have an adverse experience, we sometimes feel trapped. And working on a piece of creative writing lets us kind of live two lives at the same time. There's the self that's maybe here in the room dealing with something, but then there's another self that's out there, kind of looking at the universe from this kind of dialed out perspective. And I think it's good for us no matter what. My Poet Laureate project that we're just in the midst of launching now is called This Might Help. And it is a collection of poems written by and for Calgarians that address certain topics. So that's why I really love this opportunity, the chance to address strength and adversity. That kind of opportunity to either write something or to read something that can actually help us. I think that's one of the things that literature can do for us now in pandemic and all the time.
Now, what about comedic pieces? Is there something to be said for comedy and the use of comedy when you're facing a tough time?
Absolutely. I always talk about, I always think of comedy as my personal flotation device or as my life vest. I didn't choose, today I didn't choose to share a comic piece with you. I wanted to do something. It was just the first piece that came to me that I was working on, the piece about the different meanings of heart and grit and strength. But I do think that comedy is one of those wells that we can kind of dip down in there and find a lot of strength in it. So I always think of it as, my life raft or my life vest. And if there is room to joke, like if you can find a joke inside you, it usually can offer a lot of strength to the people around you. I love comedy.
Wow. Well put. Natalie, thank you. Those are words to live by, and thank you for sharing with us today. Bless your soul and continued success. And thank you to everyone watching this live stream of the Local Dive and helping us kick off Calgary Prostate Cancer Center's Keep It in Calgary campaign. And don't forget that every donation supports men's health initiatives right here in Calgary and Southern Alberta. And there's never been a better time to support PCC as we all work to enhance the health of men across Calgary and Southern Alberta. So please support by visiting keepitincalgary.ca. And I just want to give a shout out to the fabulous folks at Trail Appliances. They've supported us for years and years. They've kicked in a marvelous $25,000 towards the campaign. So thank you, Trail Appliances. Over to you, Fuzz.
Now, we have two very special guests that are going to be joining us, both well-known businessmen in Calgary and also prostate cancer survivors who have been amazing spokesmen for the importance of PSA testing and early detection. So join me in welcoming in Brett Wilson and George Brookman. As many of you know, Brett is the Dragon Emeritus of the 3 seasons on Dragon's Den. He's built an extensive holdings in power generation, real estate development, cannabis, agriculture, sports and entertainment industries. And I've actually been handed a piece of paper here that says a little known fact that our very own co-host Bill Brooks wanted to be just like Brett Wilson. And the doctor said, okay, well, you've got prostate cancer. So that is an actual thing. Now, George Brookman is also well-known in Calgary's business and volunteer community. His business, West Canadian Industries Group, is Canada's leading digital print and document management organization. George serves on the board for the Field of Crosses, Calgary Flames Foundation, and the Castle Avery Hospitality Ventures. So this afternoon, we're talking about how we can overcome adversity and hardship, which is something that you're both familiar with. Brett, can you share your experience with prostate cancer and what that fight taught you?
Oh, hey, Fuzzy, we got Brett's not quite on yet. We're joined by George right now.
Okay, so about that, George. We're going to start with you. So, George, after your diagnosis, did you approach your health challenge the same way that you approached business, or did you take a bit of a different approach?
Well, that's a great question. And let me just make sure, first of all, that you can hear me all right, and that you just wave your hand and let me know that it's coming through loud and clear. Perfect.
Loud and clear. I got you, George.
Perfect. Well, it's a bit of a shakeup when your doctor phones you and says, guess what? You've got to go and have an examination at the prostate center. And but I was pretty fatalistic about it, to be honest. I hate to sound cavalier, but at the end of the day, it didn't really disrupt my world very much at all. And you have a kind of a moment when you think you're going to change the way you live your life and you're going to do all sorts of things differently. And then a few months later, you find yourself doing just the same things again. And I've been very fortunate. I'm very healthy today and virtually unscathed by the experience.
Do you find that you have a different view on life after going through this battle? Has there been a sort of a shift in your priorities?
I wish I could say that it has, but truth is I was always, I care a great deal about my family, so that hasn't changed. I remember when they wheeled me in and they give you a shot, and then you lay there for about 40 minutes before they take you into the operating room. And I remember that moment thinking, what if this doesn't work out? And you always have those thoughts. And thinking, well, I'm not unhappy with my life. I built a nice business. I have a good family. I was with the Stampede. I have made it a mark. So I felt good about it. And when I came out, I still felt good. So I think, I've been very fortunate. I feel very energetic. It's 10, 12 years now since I had my surgery. And my life has carried on very well and straightforward.
And that's what we like to hear. And that's one of the reasons why the Prostate Cancer Center here in Calgary does so many great things. And it helps people like you and men all over the city. I'm being told that we have Brett on the line right now. Brett, are you there?
I'm as here as I can be.
Excellent, Brett. Brett, can you share your experience with prostate cancer and what that fight taught you?
Oh God, have we got an hour?
For you, we'll make the time.
So I'm a three-timer now, and the week I turned 44, I was first diagnosed with, at that time, a pretty serious case of prostate cancer, and I chose a radiation protocol that called brachytherapy that was considered by many to be experimental, but I was one of the first Canadians to go down that path, and it was out of that I discovered the gap between where we were in Canada and some of the other parts of the world. And of course, there's technology is always racing forward in different places, and that was a big part of the stimulus behind the work I did with Doc Siemens in terms of advancing, the urology center for Southern Alberta at the Rocky View Hospital. Anyway, round one, brachytherapy. Had some serious side effects from called radiation cystitis, which is internal bleeding and burning of the urethra, and we're not going to get into a lot more detail than except to say that was by far the most challenging part of my treatment protocol. Then round two was 14 years later, 5 years ago, and I ended up with discovering that my lymph nodes, 4 or 5 of them, were fairly active in terms of recurrent prostate cancer. And the good news is I'd made it past 10 years, which clinically they say once you're past 10, you're clear. Well, I got to 14 and discovered I wasn't clear. And then we got through that radiation again. And then unfortunately, I had one third run, and I haven't really talked much about it publicly, but I'm not ashamed of it in that sense. But I had another tumor discovered in my spine last summer, and had the incredible help. I hadn't fully appreciated how far the Tom Baker had advanced, but I worked very closely with an oncologist, a radiation specialist, and we radiated the tumor in my spine very successfully right in the middle of Stampede last year. So, and it didn't interrupt my stampeding at all. It was a pretty straightforward process. But what I'm most proud of is that I can go anywhere in the world for treatment. Calgary was the best place for me. So 3 runs, been there, done that, got the cup of coffee, and onward. And I'm pretty proud of what we've done in Southern Alberta in terms of looking after men's health, urology health, in particular prostate health.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on what Brett just said as well. I had Dr. Kozak as my surgeon, and there's no way that I could say enough about him. He was serious. He was humorous. He was encouraging at all times. I remember after my surgery, I get a call from him, and he said, I've got really good news. And I said, what's that? He said, well, we just got your final biopsy results, and you definitely had cancer. I said, why is that good news? And he said, well, you wouldn't want to go through all that and then not have it, would you?
And that's the benefit to early detection, right? Is getting that, so that way you can get those treatments, so that way they can fight it early, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I've said, sorry to interrupt, I've said several times that prostate cancer is a great disease to catch early and a terrible disease to catch late. And that's where awareness and knowledge is power. And I am incredibly frustrated by the medical community that says, don't bother getting your PSA tested until you're 40, 50, whatever the number is. Knowledge is power. And so if I'd had my PSA done when the year that I turned 40 instead of 43, I would have had knowledge and more options. The other thing is that the earlier you catch prostate cancer, and again, I'm an amateur, but I'm a fairly seasoned amateur, the more options you have, whether it's surgery or radiation, and there's different forms of radiation, but the earlier you catch it, the more knowledge you have. And they sometimes say that a falsely inflated or elevated PSA will unnecessarily disturb the recipient of the news. And I'm thinking that's an issue for his doctor to deal with. If he can't handle giving the information correctly and couch it such that not everyone with an elevated PSA has cancer, but without knowing that your PSA is elevated, you're not going to look anyway, and then it's potentially too late.
And also a couple of days of worry, as opposed to a couple of days of undiagnosed, or a couple of years of undiagnosed cancer. I'd rather have the worry than the undiagnosed cancer.
Perfect.
Right?
Well, there's no doubt about it. And I was always diligent about going and having a checkup every year. So I was never one of those folks that say, well, I hadn't been checked for 5 years. I hadn't been to the doctor for 5 years or whatever. And so I caught mine very, very early in the game, and had great consultation. And as I say, Kozak did a fantastic job.
Now, Brett, earlier, George talked about basically whether or not he addressed how he approaches business and life after the diagnosis. Did you notice a big difference?
Yeah, I can actually get kind of emotional thinking about the first time cancer came into my life, the little C on your shoulder where you're just not sure what's next. And, I was 43, 44 years old. I'd had a career that had me working some incredibly long hours. And as cancer came into my life, I realized that I was very incomplete in terms of my relationships with some key friends, and in more particularly my family. And so I took advantage of, call it the cancer scare, to refocus and double down or triple up my efforts to be more complete, if you will, in terms of family relationships. Thus, when I was diagnosed with the second round of cancer 14 years later, I was pretty chill. I mean, I didn't want to die of cancer, but I was also very complete in the sense that if cancer got me this time, I was happy that I had built the relationships I cared about in terms of family and friends. And then I set about fighting it. And I certainly have another 20, 30 years of plans to continue to tweet and fight and do what I do in terms of enjoying the West.
If there's one message that you guys could pass on each, I'll get George, I'll get you to go first. If there's one message you could pass on to people watching right now, what would that be?
Get regular checkups, stay very positive, and don't worry. Just take each day as it comes and give it your best.
And Brett, for you?
Well, I'm going to go big picture and say we should be supporting Aaron O'Toole, but I'm not sure what are the topics that we're allowed to cover here today.
Brett, we're not getting into politics.
Okay, I just want you asked for advice.
No, I don't make me regret it, Brett.
So, yeah, I mean, I think George went down the exact path, and it goes back to the earlier conversation about knowledge is power. Getting checked. I mean, when I first was diagnosed, there was a lot of talk about a PSA of 4 being, call it the gold standard. If you were below 4, you were probably fine. If you were above 4, you might have a problem. Well, I think the evolution of knowledge is that it's the change in PSA. It's how rapid is it growing. If it's steady at 4 for many years and then takes off, you might have a problem. But at the same time, I've had several friends with prostate cancer whose PSAs went from 1.5 to 3, all of that well below the standard of 4, but it's the change in the PSA. So it really comes down to plotting a chart, not a data point, but setting up a chart. And the earlier you start that, 35, 40, I'd certainly recommend that. And then, I mean, I'm at a point in my life where I'm getting PSA tested every 2 to 3 months because we monitor and watch very carefully. There's little doubt that on recurrent cancer, the recurrent prostate cancer, the change in PSA is a fairly strong indicator that you have a problem somewhere. And there's lots of different treatment protocols and testing protocols and scan protocols. But most importantly, the PSA is how it all starts in terms of the first tidbit of knowledge. And as George says, get checked.
I think one of the interesting points that you made earlier, Brett, is that out of anywhere in the world that you could get treatment, and not only the treatment, but I think the support, because that's exactly what the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center gives, is that additional support in addition to the medical aspect of it. Calgary has something that a lot of other places don't.
Well, we've certainly got the Southern Institute, or the Southern Alberta Institute of Urology, and as much as my name's on the building, credit goes 100% to Doc Siemens and his family and the efforts that Doc put together. Doc tapped me on the shoulder one day and asked if I'd like to participate, and it was the right day, the right time, and I said yes, but it was Doc's initiative all the way. The other is that, just to tell a story a bit out of school, I went to Tom Baker last summer to get treated, and of course I was a little apprehensive about being recognized and wearing baseball cap and sunglasses and all that stuff. But literally, you go downstairs, and Tom Baker's an older building, but I remember coming through a sliding door into the one of the new scanning of the radiation tools, and it was like a steps. It was Captain Kirk and the Enterprise. It was unbelievable how modern and state-of-the-art that everything was inside the treatment room where I did my radiation on my spine. I was pretty proud. I didn't know about that. I trusted the people. And again, a lot of your treatment protocols are based on the people and how you trust, because there's a science, but there's also an art, and that art comes from experience. And so it's the application of science. And I came away very, very comfortable, and without naming doctors, because there's lots that are great, but the 2 or 3 that I was closely linked to were outstanding. I was really, really pleased. And but then walking into that room, as I said, the control center and the screens and the computers, and I had my 2 grandsons, and my daughter and her husband were with me the first morning that I went for treatment, and everyone was just wide-eyed at the quality of what was living inside this sort of nondescript old building. It was outstanding. Something I'm very proud of.
Brett, you're making a great comment there, and I don't want to leave without making this comment. We hear so much about healthcare on the media these days, but in my years of experiences, and it's more decades than I want to count, I can never get over the quality of healthcare that we have in this province, certainly in Calgary and up there. And but whether it was for my family or myself or whatever, we are very blessed with good healthcare in this area.
Oh, absolutely. We've got great people. And as much as I give some of the doctors grief in terms of our overall medical budget, I believe that every medical professional is entitled to reasonable compensation. And just for the record, I'm going back into the clinic for a fairly significant checkup and probably procedure next week. So I'm pretty happy that whole system is working as well as it is with the people that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, we've talked about early detection. I think early treatment is also something that is great that we have here in this city. When I arrived here earlier today, they gave me a bit of a tour of the facilities, and they walked me around, and they were talking about how the way that things are set up here at the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center, the treatments happen within days as opposed to within weeks or months. Can either of you talk about that?
Go first, Brett. You go first, Brett.
Well, my first experience with getting the biopsy, and frankly, the biopsy was a little more challenging than I expected, but we got that done on day 1. And George is smiling because I can.
I'll tell you a story.
Yeah. You want to talk about your anyway? That snap, click, whoa.
Yeah.
Anyway, men who've been down this path know exactly what we're talking about. But again, it's something that has to be done. It's just part of the process, the protocol, the procedures. But in my case, my enormous frustration was in the people side, where it was something like 10 days between when my testing was done and when I actually got a phone call saying, hey, you've got cancer. And I know that we've accelerated that dramatically. I think the testing results might have sat on a desk for 4 or 5 days. Things were busier. Maybe people didn't feel like it was panic mode reaction. It's not like a brain tumor where they want to do surgery an hour later. But the flip side is I, sitting waiting for my results, was pretty apprehensive and pretty anxious. My understanding now of what we've accomplished with the Prostate Center and the quick turn is extraordinary. Fast results, fast coaching, fast response, and it's timely and appreciated by all men.
Well, I didn't want to know that badly, so I guess you were different than me. But the truth is, I think I had my first diagnosis on the 30th of April, and I had the surgery on the 1st of June. So I thought it moved very quickly. But I remember a couple of funny stories, and Brett's talking about that wonderful biopsy procedure, which is not too much fun. But I decided to go in and tell a few jokes, which I did. And the young lady or the nurse in there said, well, that's the first time I've actually laughed while I was doing this procedure. And there was a gentleman there, which I made a joke with, and I won't bother with telling you that story. But I do remember arriving, and you're supposed to drink, I don't know, a gallon of water before you get there, because you're supposed to, I don't know, fill out. And of course, I took a taxi up, but I forgot to drink the water. So I stopped the taxi, drank all this water, and went in. And as soon as this nurse came over, she said, you didn't drink the water, did you? I said, yes, I did. No, but you didn't drink it when you were supposed to drink it. I said, no, I didn't. You're right. You're right. So she says, well, we'll see what we can do anyway. And she turned the lights down in the room, and the radiation thing came on. It was kind of red. And I said, if you bring out wine, we're having a date right now.
George, someone just taped this, I'm sure.
Anyway, I had her laughing. Then we went in the other room, and at first I wasn't going to laugh. And then I thought, well, I might as well laugh, because you're not going to get through it any other way.
Well, keeping a sense of humor through all of this is important.
It's very important.
And, you know, again, it goes back, though, to the big picture. You know, we've got some of the best people doing some of the best work, and I'm pretty proud to be even slightly associated, even through doing this work. George and I we've overlapped on dozens and dozens of different charitable and community initiatives, and this is probably one of the most important in terms of men's health.
Yeah, for sure.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Brett Wilson, George Brookman, your continued support of the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center right here in Calgary is very much appreciated. Thank you for all the work that you do, and for all of the work that you continue to do going forward.
We look forward to our next talk on politics.
Absolutely.
Brett, don't do this to me.
Zip.
Take good care.
The local dive is the start of Calgary Prostate Cancer Center's Keep It in Calgary campaign, supporting Calgary's best kept secret. We're going to take a few minutes here to learn a little bit more about this amazing center.
Before we get started, let's get one thing clear. I don't want to talk about my prostate, and I think I'm pretty typical. I'm 43, I never think about my health, and I think a PSA is a pizza stand alert. Stay with me, that's going to be a joke. Plus, biggest surprise of all, until recently, I'd never heard of this amazing place. I learned about Calgary's Prostate Cancer Center by becoming one of the 1 in 7 Canadian men who are diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. I'm going to survive that diagnosis, and this is why. The Prostate Cancer Center provides information, expertise, and emotional support to me and my family. I found my way here after a visit to the Man Van. The van's one of a kind, a mobile unit that goes out to Calgary communities with a simple test. No, not this test. In the Man Van, trained staff give a free, simple PSA blood test. So now you know, PSA does not mean pizza stand alert. It's really an early tool in the detection of prostate cancer. Catch the disease early, treat it early, that's how men win. Of course, Calgary is not the only place you'll find a man van. A second man van is dedicated to rural southern Alberta. The results of those PSA tests go straight back to the Prostate Cancer Centre. This is where the country's top urologists, nurses, support staff, and a small army of dedicated volunteers continue the process of diagnosis, treatment, and recovery. What makes the centre unique is the rapid access clinics. Clinics 1 and 2 deliver speedy diagnosis and treatment options. Clinics 3, 4, and 5 are integrated post-treatment. An ongoing, personalized check on your progress, an opportunity to ask questions, get referrals, and obtain access to specialized urologists. All along the journey, volunteers add their magic. You'll learn about the library, the resource center, and one-on-one peer support. My personal highlight was speaking to a volunteer right before my biopsy. He took me from anxious to okay in no time. And after your treatment, the help just keeps coming. From wellness, to exercise, to sexual intimacy. Post-operative programs are the heart of personalized support for you and your family. As if all that wasn't enough, the center's been recognized nationally and internationally as a research center for clinical trials. At this point, you're probably thinking, how is all this funded? Well, everything runs on the generous support of sponsors, local events, and individuals, many of whom have a personal story about prostate cancer. Guys like Doc Seaman and Brett Wilson, even guys like me. So, what happens now? Well, I know what's here, and I know how to use it, so I'm in a real good place. You deserve the same. Let's give the Prostate Cancer Centre the support it deserves.
Wow, very cool indeed. And you can see how truly fortunate we are to have a place like the Calgary Prostate Cancer Centre. And if you'd like to support this amazing organization today, visit keepitincalgary.ca. So that's keepitincalgary.ca. And please make a donation. And before we move on to our next guest, I just want to thank again our major sponsors, Agate Laboratories, for helping make the Local Dive live stream event possible. So here, we're just going to show you another quick little video. We'll be right back. Wow. Thank you, Agate Laboratories. We couldn't be the success that we are without your invaluable support. So next, I'm pleased to welcome our two next panel guests, David Spence and Licia Corbella. You'll of course know David as the Chief Meteorologist for CTV Calgary. David was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2012. David received brachytherapy treatment in early 2013. The treatment was successful, and David's PSA levels have been undetectable for several years. Welcome, David, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Bill. Thank you. And Licia Corbella is one of Calgary's most popular opinion columnists, and I'm the biggest fan of Licia's. We've worked together for almost 30 years, maybe even a bit longer, and Licia knows a thing or two about battling adversity. In 2015, at the age of 52, Licia was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, the least common and most aggressive form of breast cancer. Nearly dying, nearly killed her. From the treatments designed to cure the cancer, Licia never called the harsh chemotherapy she endured, quote, quote, poison, as she'd heard so many other cancer patients say. Instead, she called it her life-extending medicine. So thank you for joining us, Licia. So Licia and David, you've obviously kept a positive attitude throughout the entire journey. And David, even during this blizzard, and we'll talk about the weather later, like what's going on. So I'll start with you, David. There's an abundance of information out there about cancer and treatment, some good and others not. David, what resources did you use and rely on that aided you in your cancer journey?
Before I get into that, Bill, I just want to say something of a personal note. You and I, we don't run into each other a lot, but when we do, you always stop and you always ask me how I'm doing, how my health is. And that is appreciated more than I think you will ever know. And thank you for that. I just want to turn it around here. Did I hear Fuzzy correctly earlier saying that you have now been diagnosed?
No, actually, the quote, the joke should have been that George Brookman said to the doc, "I want to be just like Brett Wilson," and the doc said, "You have prostate cancer." So yeah, no, it was
okay.
Yeah,
good.
No,
good to hear.
No, fortunately, touch wood. So far, I'm fine. But thank you, David.
All right. Now, to answer your question, which I believe was what kind of resources I relied on. I think, of course, obviously the main resource was the doctors that I had to deal with. And as Brett and George put so very well earlier, we have some of the finest people in the medical community and the prostate cancer community, I think, in the world. I received brachytherapy, as you mentioned. If you're not familiar with brachytherapy, and I'm sure most of the people watching this are, but if you're not, it's the implantation of radioactive seeds into the prostate. So I had radioactive iodine seeds. They're about the size of a grain of rice. I believe I had over 80 of them implanted into my prostate. And what those seeds do is they release radiation over a period of 20 months to slowly kill the cancer cells. Unfortunately, they also kill the healthy cells too. There's not much you can do about that. But it did work wonders for me. So I was fortunate to have, as my radiation oncologist, Dr. Siraj Hussain, who happens to be a world leader in brachytherapy treatment. And he's right here in Calgary. And it was just a stroke of really good fortune to have him as my oncologist. At the time, this was 8 years ago, they only had the funding to treat 100 men with brachytherapy every year. And that's it in Calgary. So I was very fortunate to be one of those and to be under Dr. Hussein's care. Now, brachytherapy, of course, at the time and still is a fairly rare treatment. So I did go through a lot of resources. Of course, you look online at things from everything from WebMD all the way to scientific research papers in this. And I looked at that. And you do have to filter out the good from the bad. But there's one resource that really, really helped me. And that's a website called Healing Well. It's not a website where you find scientific information. It's not a website where you find doctors. It's just a website where you find other people going through what you're going through. And as long as you can successfully sort the good advice from the bad, this is an incredibly good resource because it's real and you can really, really get a lot out of it.
That's fantastic. And your PSA levels are non-detectable, and you, of course, get tested every year, and you're feeling right as rain.
Well, you know what? I get tested every year, but now I'm down to 2 years on checkups. So
that's fantastic. Bravo.
I've gone from 6 months to 1 year to 2 years. So the doctors are pretty confident, and I'm happy about that, obviously.
Oh, congratulations. That's fantastic. Now, Lecha, my dear.
Dilly darling.
Hello. We call it Dilly darling.
I
love you more. We'll just do love it. So walk us through. I remember it was a Friday when you got the dreaded news. You'd worked a 12-hour, a light day for you at the paper. It was 12-hour, and you got the dreaded news, and you went off to an event that night.
I went to the Bill Brooks Rockabilly prostate cancer event. And, normally I have such a blast at that event. It's my favorite event of the year, as you know. And you've raised so much money, Bill. And, I just want to let everyone know that, Bill has done more than almost anyone in the province to help men with cancer. And so, you're one of my heroes, Billy, and I love you.
Thank you.
So I went to your event and I didn't have as much fun as I usually have at your event because I've literally been told by a doctor, you have cancer, and it wasn't the official diagnosis, but he said this has been there for a while, and get ready, basically. And so that was in January, I think 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was your event at Hotel Arts, and I saw you and you were looking so great. But yeah, so for me, the kind of information that I got was a lot from my doctors, and I had amazing doctors. We are so lucky in Calgary and Alberta. The doctors we have and the resources we have at the Tom Baker Cancer Center. And I had Dr. Sasha Lupachuk as my oncologist. But also there's some other really amazing resources. So when you're going through the cancer journey, your doctors will say, well, there's going to be a session on, chemo or a session on health, like eating or vitamins or radiation and all of those things. And, my husband and I, Stephen was by my side right through the whole thing. And we went to every single one of those sessions, and you can ask questions. And then there's also a great resource called Wellspring Calgary, which is for cancer patients and their families. And they have courses, like whimsical ones like watercolor and other ones to help you deal with your brain fog that's caused by the chemo or cancer. And, I use that. And then for me personally, there's an organization called the Calgary Breast Cancer Supportive Care Center. And it is, oh my gosh, such an amazing place. It looks at you in total. So there are counselors there if you're struggling with mental health issues or depression or something. I mostly went and just saw my doctor, Dr. Ardith Taylor, who was one of the founders of it. And they have a resource library there, and it's peaceful, and there's soft music and green tea that you can sip on and courses you can take. And so I availed myself of as much as that as I could. I suffered from really severe cancer-related fatigue and cancer-related brain fog. But, I got over that and ended up back at work and very happy about that.
And you're totally fine now, my dear? Everything is fine?
Yeah, well, it's been 5 years, and most people get the all clear after 5 years. But with triple negative breast cancer, you sort of wait 7 years for that. But the thing with the triple negative, it's such an aggressive type of breast cancer that if you don't get it by 7 years, the likelihood of it ever coming back is almost nothing. So I feel really confident that we got it. Like the chemo was harsh. Nearly did me in a couple of times there, Billy, but it killed all the cancer. I have no doubt of that.
Wow. Thank goodness. Now, David and Leisha, you're both family-oriented individuals. David, how important was it for you to have the support of your family during your prostate cancer journey?
Well, this is an interesting story. Most of my family did not know at first for a couple of reasons. I was diagnosed 8 years ago, and at the time I had 2 children in middle school, 1 child in high school, and I was diagnosed in mid-November, and I didn't want to ruin their Christmas, so I didn't tell them.
Wow.
My mother at the time was quite frail. She was in her 90s, and my sister had gone through a very serious cancer fight, which she successfully fought and survived and is doing well today. But that was very hard on my mother. So I thought if she were to find out that I had cancer, that could be it. That could be the end of it.
Oh, wow.
So I did not tell her. I did not tell my children. I told my wife. I told my sister. I told my employers. But that's it. I pretty much went through this without a whole lot of family support for a long time. I was diagnosed in November, and it was February of 2013 when I had my treatment. And they do the brachytherapy treatments right back then. It might still be the same. They did them on Tuesdays. So I told my kids the weekend before the Tuesday I went in for the treatment. And by that time, I had done a lot of research on it. I was very confident that the treatment would work. It did have a tremendous success rate. It was in the 90 percentile.
Yeah.
And I was able to give them the news in a good way. I was able to tell them a lot of positive things that were down the road for me if all went well. Of course, there's always a chance it will not go well, but the chances were pretty good that it would. So I was able to break the news to them in a more positive way than if I had told them right away. Nonetheless, it was 2 days before the procedure, and that day was awfully traumatic on them. They did go to school that morning, but my daughter left for school in tears. And the procedure is a day procedure. You go in the morning, you come out at the end of the day. So, of course, everybody was just thrilled when I came home that night. Everybody but me, because I was in some discomfort, to say the least. But it was at that point that I started to get support from my kids. I never did tell my mother. She passed without knowing. And I also did not go public with it because I didn't want my mother to find out publicly. So I also did not reveal to the public until the end of 2014, which is 2 years after my diagnosis, what had happened. So yes, I did go through a lot of it myself, but of course my wife knew all along, and she was a tremendous source of support. And my sister was too, because she had gone through a cancer battle, and she was able to offer a lot of encouragement as well.
Oh, wow. Now, Leach, you have wonderful Stephen and your 2 twin boys, and I know your family is very, very, very important to you.
Yeah.
And also your faith. So what got you through this? What helped you dig deep and get through it?
Goodness. All of those things. So for me, Stephen went to every single one of my appointments with me, except, the ones at the Breast Cancer Supportive Care Center. And my kids. So when I woke up from my surgery for the lumpectomy, my boys were sitting right by the bed, as was Stephen. When I was hospitalized because I had an infection and I had no immune system, my kids would come and visit me. And this is just before they graduated from high school. So, I couldn't go out and get their tuxes with them and all of that. But, they would come and visit me and they cheer me up. And, you're losing your hair and you're feeling terrible. And that was, so that was great. And then, my faith, I don't know how people get through things like that without faith. Like for me, well, Jesus says that he is close to the brokenhearted, and that he encourages us to cast all of our cares and worries on him. And that's what I did. And so I'm a pretty upbeat person most of the time. And my faith journey with my husband, we prayed every day, and I told everyone. So, it was announced in the paper that I was leaving because of cancer, and I asked people to pray for me, and I got lots of prayer, and I believe prayer works. Yeah. And so, oh my gosh, that was so important to me. And, we did, I read the Bible and prayed every morning and night. And so, yeah, that was a really important part for me. And I felt like I didn't feel like I wanted to blog about it and be that open about it, but I did want people to know. And I was really helpful. My church really came alongside me and helped me a lot. And oh my gosh, the love, just so much love. I had flowers in my house from other people for 1 year.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Every time one bouquet would start dying, I'd get another bouquet of flowers from someone, like my dad or a senator in Ottawa, or just, a girlfriend, Julie, or something like that, right? Just amazing love from so many people, lots of notes of encouragement, and that all helps, right?
Oh, no kidding. Well, you're much beloved, my dear. You're much beloved.
As are you. I like the COVID beard, by the way.
Oh, gee, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. You threw me off there.
Oh,
so I'm going to throw this to David, and then Leach, I'd like you to weigh in as well. The role of media, and both of you being well-known media, and I know you wouldn't like the word celebrities, but you're well-known, and everybody knows who you are. Having faced the challenges that you faced, do you feel an additional responsibility? Like David, do you feel a responsibility to say, guys, go and get checked above age 40, or how do you feel about that?
Wow. Like Brett and George earlier, I just can't say enough about how important that is.
Yeah.
I don't hear it so much now, but a couple of years ago, we heard, the doctors didn't want to test unless there was reason to until a certain age or whatever. What a bunch of nonsense. Yeah. When I was tested, my family doctor broke some rules to get me tested ever since he started treating me 25 years ago. So I was, in my 30s when he started me on PSA testing. And because of that, the baseline was set at a very, very young age. And that's how he found out that I may have prostate cancer. I had a little finger test like everybody does.
Sure.
But it didn't show anything. But he sent me for tests. At that time, I think it was once a year. He included PSA as part of the regular workup of blood tests that he would send me for, even though he really wasn't supposed to technically. And he noticed a rise in the PSA. And he said, I think maybe you should go and get this checked out. And he didn't wait for another test to confirm that the PSA was still rising. He was just on it, just like that. So then he sent me up to the Prostate Cancer Center. Dr. Metcalf ordered the biopsy. And as George said before, oh my gosh, that might have been the worst. The most uncomfortable thing of the whole procedure was the biopsy. But anyway, it was done, and it did confirm Gleason 7 prostate cancer, which means it was intermediate risk. It had to be treated right away. But I guess back to the point, if my family doctor didn't send me for those PSAs early, then it would have not been caught that early. Let's say he sent me for the first PSA at 50. Then my baseline would be that higher level instead of the lower level that it was when he sent me earlier. So he would think that higher level was the normal, but it wasn't. And because of that, I was diagnosed early, treated successfully. I mean, prostate cancer, they tell you 10 years before they can declare you cured, and we're not there yet. But and we all know what happened with Brett Wilson. But without that, the outcome undoubtedly would have been far worse.
Yeah, that's so cool. Which, unfortunately, Leach, we're just about out of time, so I can't give you equal opportunity. But do we know? I'm going to switch gears completely here. I think it's 1 o'clock. We know in 2 minutes is an election been called federally. I can't wait to read the column tomorrow.
Oh yeah, no, I'm writing a piece about the National Energy Program, the 40th anniversary. So I'm not writing for tomorrow, but yeah, I don't know yet. I'm going to key in on that. I hope there's no election, and I hope that the committee goes ahead. I think this is just absurd.
Yeah. Oh, it's insane in these times. Well, listen, I can't thank you both enough, David and Leach. You're inspiring. God bless your souls, and thank you for taking time out of your busy lives to share your journey and your stories. And to all those people watching, I'm sure they just feel a little bit better about their lives after listening to the two of you. So thank you.
Oh, blessings to you, Billy. Hello, David, and goodbye. And we'll see you all later. And I hope, people should donate and help our men. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to take part in this. It was absolutely tremendous. Happy to do it. Proud to do it. Good to see the both of you again. We don't see each other enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Amen to that. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. So I'd also like to thank Post Media for their tremendous support throughout this campaign. Post Media have helped us, been an invaluable supporter for years and years here at the Prostate Center. And we're just so very grateful to Post Media for everything they've done for us and continue to do so. Thank you. Over to you, Fuzzy.
So Keep It in Calgary is about living local and giving local, and that's why we're asking you to use the hashtag Live Local, Give Local. There are several local businesses that have committed to supporting the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center during the month of November, and we want to take a moment here to thank them. One of them is Good Mood Brewing. Good Mood Brewing is brewing up a special hibiscus and rose hip cream ale with $1 from the sale of every 6-pack that goes to supporting the PCC. If you're a local business and you want to support the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center, then you can visit the business sign-up section on keepitincalgary.ca.
Hockey fans will be very familiar with our next guest, Kelly Hrudey. Kelly is a Gemini-winning broadcaster who brings his expert insight as a former NHL goaltender to Sportsnet. There he is. Kelly works as a studio analyst for Hockey Night in Canada and joins Calgary Flames regional broadcast team as game analyst throughout the week. Kelly lives in Calgary with his wife and is a proud father of 3 daughters. and well away from the broadcast booth is a passionate mental health advocate. Welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for making time to be with us today. And I understand you're out of town now. Are you in Calgary?
No, we're in Whistler. So after this strange hockey season, Bill, we took off and we had my mom come down and visit a little bit in Calgary, and then we drove her back to Edmonton, and then we decided to go on a little bit of a road trip. So that's where my lovely wife, Dawn, and I find ourselves right now. It's been a crazy year, as you know, Bill. And by the way, it's really nice to be on with you. I've been a big fan of yours for so long, all the work that you've done with the Rockabilly Cancer Ball. I've never been able to join you, unfortunately, because it's always been during the hockey season. So I've missed it, but I've watched your work from afar, and I think you've raised, what, over $8 million bucks. So that's phenomenal for you. I'm just so impressed.
That's so kind of you to say. Well, if I can be half the man you are, then my life has been well lived, my friend. True.
You don't want to go down that road, Bill.
Well, so, you know, it especially for guys to be able to talk about mental health issues and depression. It's something guys don't do. We're not supposed to. And we were probably brought up, I know I certainly was, if you weren't allowed to cry, let alone ever feel sorry for yourself. So why would tackling your mental health issues of critical importance, and what was the impetus that you came out to share it? I'm sure it wasn't easy.
Well, first of all, to comment on your message about guys aren't normally willing to talk about that, I've been always quite open, more open as of late, but I am a crier, so I'm the kind of guy that I go to a wedding and I cry. I'm just so happy for the people, so right?
Oh gosh, I weep like a baby watching The Sound of Music, so there you go.
I mean, I'm that guy. So, and I'm not ashamed of that at all. That's just me. That's how I was born. I'm going to go down that road. But what our sort of journey, I guess, as a family, before I recognized I had some mental health issues, I didn't know what it was. I just sort of called it to, like, I was going through an episode or a time in my life where, man alive, I just couldn't handle life. I just couldn't handle being an NHL goalie. It just got the best of me, Bill. So it was the summer of 1992, and I'm playing for the Los Angeles Kings. And whatever happened, I just don't know. But my brain was telling me over and over and over, and I'll get to our daughter, Caitlin, because she's a big part of this story about why I'm sharing my story. That loop, she taught me about the loop in the brain and how it just went over and over and over. And I didn't know how to break that loop. I didn't know about the loop, but my brain just kept telling me, you can't do this any longer. You're not good enough. It's going to come to an end. And which would be, in a sense, kind of rational thoughts, because an NHL player's career typically is only about 3 or 4 years. And I think I was entering my 10th year. So you would have those doubts at times, but my thoughts became completely irrational, and they just got the best of me. But I didn't know what that was going on. I didn't know I didn't know the mental